Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from IrishSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flamong, and we're going to get to our interview with former Notre Dame linebacker Drew White in just 1 second. But first, I want to talk to you about ESQ clothing. If you're looking to upgrade your wardrobe this spring, ESQ has created the world's first bamboo dress shirt. Crafted from high-quality bamboo fabric, it's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. It's not only more sustainable than cotton, but also it feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant, and is even machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo shirt on every photo of Marcus Freeman. It's the perfect shirt for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. So check out esqclothing.com and upgrade your shirt game. All right, now let's get to Drew White. All right, we are here with former Notre Dame linebacker and current Washington Commander Drew White, live from OTAs, pre-OTAs, getting all your situation worked out, coming off an injury for the Commanders. How you doing, bud?
Doing good. Appreciate you having me on, Greg.
Absolutely. Love to get on the former players. I've had Ian Book on the show. I've had your teammate Troy Pride on the show a couple of times. Wonderful character. Love Troy, and Ian Book is a good guy as well. So first, let's catch up with where you're at. You're with the Washington Commanders, coming off of an injury. You tore your ACL. You said it was last August. So where are you at in that process? OTAs. What are you prepping for? What do you got going on right now?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a grind. Got to sign with Washington as an undrafted free agent after the draft, which is crazy. It's about a year ago today, around the same time,
Yeah.
and was in OTAs, was in summer and in training camp, pretty much right before the first preseason game. Ended up tearing my ACL and some other ligaments in my knee, and resulted in me being into IR. And man, these past 8 months have just been day to day attacking the process. That knee rehab is no joke. I got to hear it from a lot of people, and from having previous injuries, I kind of thought I knew what to look forward to, but it's a different beast. So definitely anybody that's gone through it knows. And so we're finally starting to get to the end stages here. So it's exciting. Getting ready for this next incoming season, and excited.
So you're looking to, you said you get cleared, hopefully around the summertime for, fall camp and that sort of thing, summer camp, get ready for the upcoming season. And then it's just trying to make the team, right? I mean, for your undrafted free agent status, you don't have like a guaranteed spot on the team or anything. Although I mean, really no one does, but I mean, you're just trying to fight for a roster spot. Is that right?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, things can change on a dime in this profession.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I imagine just kind of in the same spot I was in, a year ago. So kind of the same spot, fighting for a role on the team, special teams, reserve linebacker. Eventually, want to get into that role. But it's knowing your strengths. It's kind of just the same process where you kind of get into Notre Dame as a freshman, and there's a lot going on, and you're trying to etch out a role, and it's kind of the same deal.
I was going to say, no stranger to fighting for a spot on the team. So you entered the Notre Dame football program in 2017, and respectfully ranked around 950, I think, mid 3-star player. Obviously, for you walk down the street, you go to your local high school. You're probably one of the best players in the history of any random high school that ever shows up. But at Notre Dame, you would be considered a low 3-star, which is kind of, it carries with it some kind of a connotation. But you were able to fight for a roster spot there. And I think your big break came in 2018 when your teammate Drew Tranquil rolled his ankle in the Navy game. Coincidentally, I happened to be at that game. My wife and I, we were pregnant with our third child, and we were on like a baby moon or whatever that is. And we went to the Notre Dame Navy game in San Diego, and Drew hurts his ankle, and number 40 runs out there, and my wife says, "Who's number 40?" And I said, I think that's Drew White. Unexpected. Didn't expect that to happen, but you took that opportunity, and you made it into a nice little career. And we'll talk about that a little bit going forward. But tell me about just, coming in, obviously not the highest ranked guy, and fighting for a spot amongst, other players in 2018. That Notre Dame's always bringing in top players and that sort of thing. Tell me about your mindset there and what all went into that.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick background. I'm from South Florida, from Boca Raton. Went to Boca Raton High School up to my sophomore year. Started, having some good film out there, started playing really well, and ended up transferring to St. Thomas Aquinas. And, St. Thomas is a powerhouse down in South Florida.
Yes.
And, started there, led the team in tackles both my junior and senior year, won 2 state championships. And the offers, definitely at St. Thomas, you get a bunch of exposure. And so offers started pouring in, and my ranking never really changed. So I don't exactly know. I was a, low 3-star guy.
Yeah.
But I kept that chip on my shoulder. And, I won't say like it didn't affect me. It definitely, kept me motivated. And so going into Notre Dame, I knew, I just remember reading a bunch of articles, and I was like the second to last, or maybe even the last guy that was ranked in the class. And I just remember, bringing that attitude, into Notre Dame, and really was able to etch out my role. I mean, was dealing with some injury stuff my freshman year. So I got to redshirt, but that linebacker room to come into was a huge blessing. I always tell people that, like, having Drew Tranquil, Niles Morgan, and Tavon Coney in front of you, all of them are professionals. All of them have a certain, aspect or benefit to their game. They're all a little bit different, but I was able to kind of learn this and learn that from, different guys. And so going into a veteran room, yeah, you need to, wait your turn, but it was amazing being able to kind of be a sponge and soak up information from those guys. And, Drew Tranquil, how to be a leader, how to carry yourself, how to like go to class, like you see Drew Tranquil, he's in all these engineering classes, so they were all really, really, really great role models to kind of help me when I was transitioning into Notre Dame.
Right. What was it about the you had a knack for the option? What was it about the option that fit your eye, I guess, that you just had a knack for it? Well, was there anything in your background, like anything in high school? You played teams that were really good at the option, or what was that? How did that come to be?
Yeah, so I do remember 2 things I remember after the Navy game, checking Twitter. Ended up not checking Twitter like longer in my career. You learn that it's not a healthy place
yes.
as a player. But, your first game, you want to check social media. And I remember 2 things. One, everyone's like, who's number 40? And second thing was, he played against, the triple option in high school. And I was like, no, I didn't. Like, I don't know where that narrative came from, but never played any triple option teams in high school at all. And so don't exactly know where that came from. The whole week was a crazy story in and of itself. I was nursing an injury back still from my redshirt year, and was on scout team. So like the week before, I was not even part of the defense. I was helping out the offense. I was in the scout team. I had no idea. And we're in linebacker drills, just individual before we separate. And it's Navy week. And we're just doing cut block drills. And for some reason, Coach Lee really liked the way that my technique was and how I was defeating the cut blocks. And so I went to go run over to scout team, and he just yelled my name. It was like, no, come with the defense. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is awesome. And so practice the whole week with the actual defense, not the scout team. And before you know it, I'm playing, a bunch of snaps in the game. So it was a huge turnaround. It was pretty nuts. It was a great story, but it definitely gave me confidence, like moving forward. It was a great confidence boost into the next offseason when I knew, Drew Tranquil and those guys were leaving.
Right. So, Drew Tranquil and Tavon Coney, famously, they leave the program in 2018. Very good careers for the both of them. And so there's openings at 2 linebacker spots, right? What we call the buck. What was it? The buck and the Mike. Yeah. So I got rid of the terms with the Marcus Freeman era. We got rid of that stuff. Yeah, it's Mike and Will now. So it's the buck, right? So those 2 spots open, and so you had an opportunity. going into the spring of 2019, you got to be thinking, all right, this is my opportunity to win the job and to be a mainstay on the defense. Spring break comes, you go on vacation, and what happened then?
Yeah. So the stories get better as my career goes on, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we had like 3 or 4 spring practices before spring break. Um, was playing really well. I was playing with my hair on fire. Ended up making some splash plays, had, an interception or two, and started to impress Coach Lee. I think Lazinski was there at that point. I don't exactly remember when he got there, but it was definitely impressing everyone. Went on spring break. Yeah, I'm from Florida, but I got invited to go to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I heard skiing and snowboarding was dangerous, but thought I'd take it easy. I was on the greens. Everyone thinks I'm on these double black slopes and whatnot. I think that got thrown around in a couple articles as well, but no, I was literally on greens, and then I think some beginner blues, and ended up taking a fall. It wasn't my hardest fall of the day. It was actually very normal. Stood back up, and then felt my shoulder was a little weird. Went under my ski jacket to feel it out, and felt my AC joint sticking up,
Yeah.
and knew that was going to be the worst phone call I would ever have to make in my life. It still holds true to this day, but calling Coach Lee, calling Coach Kelly, telling them that I think I just separated my shoulder on spring break is the worst news ever.
So you called them from the mountain, essentially.
Yeah, I definitely thought the more time that went by, like the worse I'd not want to call them. So I
Right.
kind of just
Yeah.
called them
Yeah.
right away because I was like, it's not going to get any easier.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, they were pretty frustrated for sure.
That's pretty good. So I know exactly what that feels like because I have the same separation. And the bone sticks out. It's weird. It's
Yeah.
it took a long. I mean, it's very much. It's not as much pronounced as it used to be. Now you can't really tell, but when I was in high school, I mean, it was like, what's wrong with your body, So,
Yeah.
so you were out for the rest of the spring. You had to. I mean, you had to have been pretty frustrated at that point, right? Like no athlete wants to cede snaps to anyone, right? That's never what you want, especially when you have young guys who are, wanting to come in and they want playing time as well. But you ended up going into fall camp healthy and you earned a starting role, right? And so, what was that like? Just hey, like you're the guy, right? We're going with you, starter at Louisville for the first game in 2019. What was that like? Just kind of knowing, like, hey, this is my job. Like, I'm going to be the guy.
Yeah. Going off of what you said, definitely frustrating. I think the most frustrating part about all of that was I felt like it didn't really resemble my character. I didn't think I was a guy that, like to go out, have fun, and kind of put football second. I
Yeah.
knew it was at stake. I knew the older guys were leaving. I knew the job was open, and so I hated just the look that it made me have. Right?
Mm.
Oh, he went skiing on spring break and got hurt and kind of ruined his job starting, and that really fueled my rehab and going into the summer. Um, Conversations with coaches, always give credit to the coaching staff that was there because they gave it to you straight. There's a lot of, these college programs that will just, lie to you. And these guys told me that, you're going to be down on the depth chart when you come back in fall camp. You're probably going to be 3 or 4. We'll give you a shot to earn it back, but fall camp's really not that long. Feels really long, but you got 15 practices really before you start getting into some prep for the season, and
Yeah.
so there's not much time to impress. And they did say they're going to give me a couple practices, and so that's kind of what happened. I started that 2019 fall camp as a 4-string linebacker. I was one of the last guys getting any reps, and that really fueled me. Played every play with my hair on fire, was playing physical, was making some good plays. And by the second week, I started creeping up and I was kind of splitting some 1 reps. And that just got me more excited. And so that was probably I ended up getting the nickname 40 Dog during that fall camp. And that was just from Todd Light and some of the coaches that really weren't sure who the person was flying around. And they just saw the number 40. And so they were just started calling me 40 Dog. And that's kind of how it originated. But that fall camp, I almost saw it as a blessing. Like, the injury stunk and there was a lot of negativity towards it. But it ended up, I think, actually helping me a lot in my development at Notre Dame.
Yeah. I mean, and so then you went on to tie for the team lead in tackles with 80 with Jeremiah Usu-Koromoa, 8 tackles for loss. And so, I mean, I think going into that year, it seems like you do read a little bit. You're aware of the narratives and that sort of thing. Going into the year, the linebackers were a huge concern, right? And it ended up being a good thing. Like not just you, but JOK was new. Asmar Bilal was new. I mean, I remember the narrative after the Louisville game where they had a pretty good running day, ran for over 200 yards. I mean, because everyone was looking forward to that Georgia game. And it was like Georgia, the big running team, they're going to run all over Notre Dame and that sort of thing. Louisville game was tough. And after that, you guys figured it out, buttoned it down, went into the Georgia game. I think Georgia only ran for 150 yards in that one. So tell me about playing in Athens. I mean, that's people talk about it today, like one of the best atmospheres they've ever been to.
Yeah, I would first want to say that, like, starting with a new linebacking core. I mean, Asmar had played, but this was his first time playing in the box.
Yeah,
And
he'd been the Rover, I believe.
Yeah, and so it was me, Wu, and Asmar all in new positions for their first game starting. And when you're playing a team that has a running quarterback as well, again, that opens up an extra gap in every run scheme they have.
Mm.
There's now an extra gap, and so that's hard to prep for a new linebacking core. We definitely got all of our ruffles out there early. But again, field the linebacker core, like, we didn't want to be known as like a troubled defense because the linebacking core was bad. So like when it comes to the room, we were all very, motivated in there late, extremely film study, communication, working on all of that. So, and then moving into the Georgia game, we knew Georgia wasn't doing anything special. Like, they didn't have the running quarterback with, Fromm, and they were downhill zone team. They kind of didn't care if they had some indicators that you knew where the zone direction was. Like, they were just like, we're gonna run it uphill, and we're gonna see if you can stop us. And I mean, that was probably the most physical game that I ever played, to be honest. Of just, every snap was just face to face with one of their SEC guards.
Yeah,
that was all 300 pounds, and I was definitely sore after that game. But it was super, super awesome playing in the SEC. There's nothing like it, for sure, when it comes to the fan base and just the tone of the game. It's just different. And got to play in front of some family, and my brother was there with some of his friends. And towards the end of that fourth quarter, I was able to make a tackle for loss, like, right in front of them. And they still talk about it to this day, about how fun it was. Seeing us, really thought we could pull that game off, but sadly kind of came down to the wire and lost it. But
I mean, that tackle for loss was one of the biggest plays of the game because it allowed you guys. So I mean, Notre Dame, you guys, you punted to them. You needed one stop. If they got one first down, they were going to run out the clock. I believe it was a first down play where you get and so now they're behind the sticks. They didn't really want to throw the ball that much, so I mean, that was a huge play that you made there. So it really gave you guys a chance. So
it was everything you wanted as a player, because I always give it up to the coaching staff at Notre Dame. It's one of the things that has carried Notre Dame's success in the last couple of years. But when it comes to that play, when it's late fourth quarter and you want to play, you want to tackle for loss to get them behind schedule.
Yeah,
they had this indicator with a jet sweep with James Cook, who's number 4. That's all I kind of knew him on film. And I can't exactly remember the hints and stuff that we were keying on to. But we get out there, and it's the exact look that we had highlighted in film study, and we're running in practice a couple times. And so I beelined it right for the play, hoping that it was the play that we had, prepped for. But that's that's the dream that you want as a linebacker when like it's late in the game, you need to stop, and you get, an indicator of like, oh, I know it's coming, and it was awesome for sure.
Yeah. Tell me about, because you kind of referenced it a little bit with the 3 new linebackers and that sort of thing to start out in 2019. Tell me how hard it is as a linebacker to come in, like, right as you come in, right? So like Notre Dame had a bunch of, you were just at the Notre Dame spring game. We'll get to that, but Notre Dame had a bunch of young linebackers playing in that game. How hard is it to come in and learn the defense as a linebacker and earn early playing time? I mean, is it like super overwhelming, like from a mental standpoint? How much does the physical matter at that point? Like, how hard is it to get on the field as a linebacker?
Yeah, I would say some of it's physical, like especially if you're just a little bit of an underdeveloped guy.
Like, let me put it like this. Sorry to cut you off, but like, is the physical a prerequisite? Does it have to be that way? Like, can you play light and then be also like get your way onto the field from the mental part? Or is it just like, hey, if you don't have the size, then you got to get that before you can even think about coming out here?
I would say yes. Yes, it's important to, it's a prerequisite. Unless you're a freak like, Wusu, where you can be 210 and still be explosive as hell. So there's some exceptions to that, but I would say majority is put on the mental part of it. Like coming from high school defenses, there's none of the communication and checks, and depending on what formation they're in, you having to have the D line in front of you. Like if the D line is lined up wrong, that's not the D line's fault. That's your fault as the linebacker. So you are in charge of the whole defense. And so a lot of people, when they come in, they might be able to understand, the defense at the base level, but to really be able to play to where you or the team needs you to play at, you need to have a full understanding of not only like your defense, and what everyone's doing, for communication checks, audibles, stuff like that, but also you need to play really fast. And so when you have a lot going on in upstairs, like you're going to be hesitant, you're going to be slow. And that's really where you see a lot of young linebackers, Notre Dame, but like everywhere when they get to college, is they're just not able to, play to their full potential because they're being hesitant. They're being a little slow, and they're thinking too much. And so it's fine line between like having to know what you're doing and run the defense, but also when the ball is snapped, like you're not thinking, you're playing downhill, you're fast, you're explosive, you're not hesitant. And so that's kind of that, kind of teetering line where, for some people they get it early and they can get some early playing time, but for others, it takes a couple years to understand that with the DC or the linebackers coach, and then they're able to blossom and have some good seasons.
How hard is it then to go from one defense to another? So after 2020, Clarkley, your defensive coordinator, goes and takes the Vanderbilt job, and Marcus Freeman comes in coaching a different, almost like a completely different defense. How hard is it then for a linebacker to adjust to that?
Okay, so hopefully he would not listen and would not get mad at this, but hard, except for Freeman's defense, it was a lot easier than Clarkley's defense. And so it was a lot easier for people to play fast. And like, again, it's kind of like individual to individual. So for some people, you got to see in Freeman's defense kind of blossom and have some great games and kind of surprise some people. And so that was being able to play fast, and they didn't have as much to think about, And so honestly, transitioning to Freeman's defense, I don't think was insanely hard for some people. I think we saw some hiccups in the beginning there with some games and some long runs, and you got some bust coverages, maybe guys playing too free. But again, like I think that transition wasn't as hard to where, from what I heard, going from Freeman's kind of defense to Al Golden coming in and having his own twist on things, kind of got some people into a little bit of a lag of having to learn a new defense.
Do you think So going from Clark Lee to Marcus Freeman would be easier because Clark Lee was maybe a little bit more difficult. Freeman was a little bit more free, to no pun intended. But then going to someone who like Al Golden, who maybe is a little bit more structured, would it be harder to go from someone who was free? Like, do you think it would be harder to go from Freeman to Golden based on what you've heard? Right, you didn't play for Al Golden, but based on what you've heard, is it harder to go for someone from someone who's very free, like Marcus Freeman, to Al Golden? Like, do you think that would be more difficult for the players on the roster right now?
100%. Unless you already had some backing, but for younger guys that might have came in with Freeman, and that was their only transition from high school to college, and I don't want to like make it too extreme either. Like, there's still going to be a huge jump from high school to Freeman's defense,
Right, for
but
sure.
if that's all they know to go into an even more complicated defense, that's another step and hurdle that you're gonna have to make. Whereas in a lot of those guys that came in with Coach Lee, they were already up to their head with trying to understand the whole defense. It was very gap sound, and so like you were either right or wrong. To where Freeman might have gave you more freedom to be like, yeah, you're wrong, but you might have made the play, so we're not mad. So it's kind of different a little bit, but for sure, without that, Coach Lee, I think it might have hit some people a little bit harder.
Yeah, because I don't know how much you followed Notre Dame last year. You've got a lot of friends on the team still. So there was a lot of talk about the linebacker play last year, and just like it wasn't. I would say it was a notch below what Notre Dame fans are used to from from 2017 with Tavon and Drew Tranquil, and then you and Wu and Asmar and that sort of thing, and it kind of took a step down. And so, do you think that there was something to that, like going from first Lee, then Freeman, then Golden? Do you think that was kind of a pretty big factor in that?
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of veteran linebackers, so I don't know if I can give them that scapegoat, because some of them all had three of them. Like they had C. Lee, Freeman, and Golden, so there's really no excuse. But anytime you're transitioning defenses, like you are going to have hiccups, I think. Especially with college guys, it's a big change. So, I'm not saying that's like the only reason, why. But like anytime you change defenses, like there's definitely going to be hiccups. And that's why those first couple games, you would like to iron out all the mistakes in fall camp. But usually defense wise and sometimes offense wise, those first couple games, everyone on Twitter is freaking out that, our defense stinks. But usually it starts coming around, towards the end of the season and stuff.
Yeah. Tell me about playing for Marcus Freeman.
Well, playing for Freeman was very fun. His meetings were super relaxed. We're playing like music, and it's a really, really good attitude and stuff that he brings. I think it's not too loose. There's like order. I don't want to think it's a party in there, but I think he's a player's coach. He is like through and through. You see that with recruiting. But he's fun to be around. He makes the meetings fun, engaging. He knows when he's losing people. There's no people, guys falling asleep in the back room. Like if that's the case, like let's get a break. Let's play some music. Let's, we had a little basketball hoop. Let's play, a game of pig or something. Like let's move around and then let's lock back in. And so he's a really good guy when it comes to that stuff, like in the meeting rooms I found. And then, he's an ex-player, ex-linebacker, and he likes like violence and physicalness at practice. It's one of his favorite things. So, you see guys like Marist and Patello, like he loves those guys, because they come with violence. And so, yeah, I mean, he's a super awesome guy to play for it. And I really liked both experiences I got at Notre Dame when it came to, Coach Lee and Freeman. I think they're very, very different, but they both can operate good defenses, and they're both excellent coaches. So it's cool to see like how, two excellent coaches could be vastly different on two sides of kind of the totem pole.
Yeah. It's interesting how he has kind of, I don't know. That everyone talks about him kind of the same way. Like I asked you about him, your face kind of lit up a little bit. Like everyone has that, just like everyone talks about how genuine he is, and I think that's kind of a term that's thrown around a lot, but I think people, like, it really resonates with what the way he is. I think that really resonates with people. And something I've always wondered about, and because you were former Notre Dame captain, so you were elected captain as a senior in 2021. First of all, tell me about that. Tell me, before we get to the Marcus Freeman part, tell me about being elected captain. I mean, from where you started, where you came from, trying to fight for a job, 3-year starter at Notre Dame. Tell me about that moment. Tell me what that meant to you.
Yeah, that meant the most out of anything I accomplished at Notre Dame. That was the thing I'm most proud of. I think it's because it comes from the guys in the room.
Yeah.
I always have my own opinions. People can have their own opinions, but when it comes to awards and accolades, like I might have not gotten all the things, like going into Notre Dame, being a low ranked recruit, to playing in 2020 and like being one of the only guys that didn't make the all ACC. Like I never really cared about that. Like the act, like it didn't bother me at all. The only thing I cared about was like, did the guys in the room like me? Did they have like, did the safety behind me like think, okay, like Drew's a dog, he's going to make the tackle in front of me.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry about it. Or like the D line being like, we have a really good communicator and he's going to get us lined up. Like it's all I really cared about. And so coming into my last year, 5th year, and being voted captain by your, kind of fellow teammates and players, it was like the biggest reward for me, and something that obviously I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. So,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, as a former safety, I think that resonates with me. Just like the linebacker, you want the linebacker to always be where he's supposed to be, because there's nothing worse. Let me tell you, there's nothing worse than you're back there and you see the hole open and some running back gets a free run and you just got to stand there and take it. It's the worst thing ever.
Can't
Yeah, it's not good. Especially back when I played, they were actually fullbacks. So you get the little fullback trap and little old me's got to just take it in the face. That's no good. So as a captain, you were part of the group that went to Jack Swarbrick after Brian Kelly, left for LSU, which I think was a shocker, right? I don't think anyone saw that coming. First of all, how did you take that as just, because you're leaving the program, and so you're getting ready. You're obviously, you guys are 11-1, so you're going to play in at least a major bowl game, if not going to be a playoff team, based on the results of the championship games. And you're in, and Brian Kelly leaves. I mean, I had no one. I personally didn't see it coming. I doubt you saw it coming. How did you take that in, and what did you feel like your role was as a captain in that moment?
Yeah. So I feel like if you talk to a lot of the guys, really, I don't know, probably from 2017 to where they started turning around from the 4-8 season up until this time when Coach Kelly left, like all the guys on the team, there was something special about the culture that we had. Like,
yeah.
I feel like a lot of people talk about it, and maybe people don't get it. I don't know what it's like outside looking in, but like the type of culture that we had, that I think originally originated from the linemen. I think Harry Heastan and like Hainsey, Liam Eichenberg, like they created this culture about like it's bigger than you, it's bigger than your individual performance. It's about Notre Dame football, upholding legacy, tradition, winning games. Doesn't matter how you win them. Doesn't matter what anybody says. Just getting like W's on the schedule. And like, I just remember I moved into the O-line house, and who was formerly the O-line house, I don't know. But and like I got food, and Hainsey was like, why didn't you ask if anybody else wants any? I was like, I don't know. I didn't really think about it, And like that idea, right? Where it's like, it's not just like you're going to go do your own thing, or like, hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to, go somewhere, just me. Like it was a really team camaraderie built, cultured team. And that is what we had. And so fast forward, I'm leaving, Coach Kelly leaves. And like, I didn't want Notre Dame to change. Like it wasn't like we needed an overhaul. Like we didn't need a new system. Like we were playing good. We were having 10-win seasons, 11-win seasons. Like making the playoffs twice. Like I mean, we were on a trajectory that was championship football, and we were getting there. And so obviously, as a person that spent 5 years at Notre Dame, I wanted to see Notre Dame win a championship. And so I felt like, and the rest of the captains felt like their voices needed to be heard about how special this place was, how everyone had confidence about moving forward. Notre Dame is on the cusp of making a championship, winning a championship. And a lot of, me and Kurt Heinisch and Myron, like Kyron, like we were all leaving, but we made it a fact that we wanted to continue this thing, this special thing that's being built. And that's really where all that motivation came from. So, sitting down with Swarbrick and being in those meetings, we really cared. So
what did you feel like, I guess, what were you afraid of, I guess? Like what about that felt like, that moment felt like we have to, like, what were you afraid of happening?
I was afraid that we would get a bigger name or a good name guy that didn't know anything about Notre Dame or Notre Dame football and came in and brought his own system and own beliefs, to where I didn't, we weren't a 4-8 team. We weren't anything that needed a huge overhaul. And so I think that word right there, like an overhaul, made me mad, and I was like, let's keep as close to this original team as we have, Tommy Rees, Freeman, Bayless, all these important, people in the building. And because, Coach Kelly had a huge role. He's a really, really good runner of programs. But let's keep the train moving. And so to stop the train, and add some more luggage or remove some luggage and do this big overhaul, that was kind of the worst thing that I didn't want. And so that was kind of my worst fear.
Got it. So, okay. So, you were, I mean, obviously that advice was heeded, right? Marcus Freeman is the head coach now. He went through the season last year. I don't know. I don't like it when, like, anytime anything happens, it's like anything negative. It's like, well, first time head coach, like, it's that you got to expect that stuff. Like I always say, like, Notre Dame lost to Marshall last year. You almost lost to Toledo the year before that, right? Like in 2021, like if Daquan Finn goes down at the 1 yard line, they're going to kick a field goal and you guys are going to lose, right? So to me, it's like these things happen in college football. And I think losing his quarterback and that sort of thing, and having to work through those issues and that stuff and other roster things that are just kind of minutia. That's like, I felt like they had a pretty good year last year. But we'll see what happens this year. You were at the spring game this last weekend. Probably could have been a bit warmer. That could have been the case. It could have been warmer for you. But what did you see there? What was the vibe amongst you and the former players and that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it's always great to go to those types of things when you graduate and move on, because everyone's in different states. It's not like you can like easily see everyone. And so when you have those reunions and you get to see a lot of your former teammates and stuff, it's awesome. The weather made me not miss Notre Dame as much as I thought, because I was like, oh my gosh, man, like snowing in April. But no, it was great. Got to see a lot of the guys. It's fun to come back and watch guys become more mature, and like you're like, dang, like the last time I saw you, you weren't like this. And that's awesome to see. And that lets you know like the culture's still intact. And guys are progressing. They're not worse, So it was great to see that. I got to see a lot of the, those younger linebackers, like Drake Bowen and Preston.
Preston's intern.
Yeah. And I remember like those guys being on their recruiting trips and being, on their officials or whatnot, and talking to them, and to see those guys now in the blue and gold is super cool. And they, definitely, I was impressed by the younger guys, because, they're being sponges. They're not, they don't have any, huge ego. Obviously, I didn't have that being a 3-star, but when you come in like as a 5-star and 4-star, I can only imagine it's easy to have that ego.
Yeah.
Like, I want to play now, and I deserve to play, or something like that. And so those guys being sponges, and learning, seemed like a really good thing for the future for sure.
Tell me about your guys, Marist, Bertrand, and Kiser. Tell me about those guys.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I feel like those guys have been there for like super long now. Like as long as I was at Notre Dame,
I think they're both fifth-year guys. They're all fifth-year guys now. So
yeah. But and they've played since they were pretty early on. So,
yeah.
But they're a great group, great group of guys. I mean, when it comes to those, you're gonna have these 5 stars and stuff coming in, but they need to be taught what's it like to be a Notre Dame student athlete. And those like Bertrand and Kiser and Marist, but like Kiser especially, like he's gonna teach you what it's like because you can't come in. And what works at some of these other big time programs isn't going to work at Notre Dame. Like you need to go to class. Like there's no online classes. Like you have to show up. They're going to take attendance. They're going to talk to academic advisors, and they're going to be pissed, and they're going to alert your coaches. And like there's a whole different kind of dichotomy relationship that's going on at Notre Dame that most people don't understand. I know a lot of Notre Dame fans understand that, and so in order to be successful there, like you kind of need to be taught. And so like when I came in, Drew Tranquil and like Niles, like those guys are teaching me like this is how stuff is ran. And so I hope, Bertrand, Kiser, and Marist, like they're going to show these younger guys, hey, this is like how we do it. This works. And then when those guys start to become older and, they're the 5-star, 4-star guys that might be gifted more physically, it's going to be a serious problem, but they for sure need some guidance. Like it's hard to come in there. Like I remember Owusu, he came in, was a freak, and he was like, everyone knew like, all right, he was special, but like you got to, figure everything out to be comfortable out on the field and play relaxed. And you're not thinking about like, okay, I'm almost like an academic probation or something. Like you can't think that way. And so, showing them how it's done, I think it's going to be really good for the future, having those guys in the room, teaching these younger guys what it's like.
What did you make of Marist's season last year, if to the extent you have an opinion? Because he was a guy who, so in 2020, he got on the field a bunch in a role, right? He was a blitzer, firing in the line, that sort of thing. He had a really big North Carolina game, played really well in that game. And he had some moments, right? And then I know in the offseason of 2021, there was a lot of hype around him. He came in, he had a role in the kind of the blitz package and that sort of thing, rushing the passer. He was doing really great in camp, breaks his leg, right? So he doesn't get on the field. This year is his first time back and led the team in snaps. Like the entire team in snaps, not just the linebacker, led the team in snaps. And like third on the team in tackles, which you want more production from the linebacker position, especially when he under 50 tackles for the season, right? So what do you make of that? Do you feel like there was maybe something there, like a combination of things with the coaching change, coming back from the injury? Like what do you make of that? Because I know you played with them, right? You played with them in 2020. He was on the team in 2021, but obviously. But based on what you saw in the fall, and then what he produced in 2022.
Yeah, so I want to be somewhat careful what I say because it's not like I was in the building, or I didn't like watch film of Notre Dame. I'm watching as a fan now.
I got you. Yeah,
it's hard to understand. Like sometimes as the fan, you don't know like. Hey, maybe, what coverage, what stunt they were doing. And so sometimes like things can look, messed up, but it, really wasn't your fault. But
right.
with all that being said, I mean, and stats too, like some, if they know he's a big blitzer, on film, watching North Carolina, maybe they're going to start sliding the protection to him. And so maybe he's not going to be able to have as much production, but still going to open up other people for that. But I think, Marist is really gifted. Like I talked about it before, but like physically, and he's very violent, loves it. And I think when he overthinks, I kind of alluded to that before too. Like when he overthinks and has a lot going on in his head, I think he plays a lot slower, and will try to it kind of lets blockers come up to him and is looking for the ball instead of playing fast, defeat the block, be the missile, make the tackle. And so when you're playing a little bit of hesitancy, you're able. I don't think you maximize your full game, and that's what I thought. Marist struggled with last year, and I think he has the ability this year to progress from that and be more comfortable and not play as hesitant and being able to know where he's going, read the offense better. Also just like not even the defense wise, but playing in games, seeing sets, right? Like you start to build in gun near, gun far, like, a condensed formation. These are the plays they're going to run for. Hey, this is a high probability of draw or screen or power counter, like, and then you're able to play to your full potential. And I think that is like his ceiling is very high. And I think it could be a really good breakout season for him. And I think, last year could have been, okay, he's starting, he's the man, he's, given his, he's getting the snaps. But if he, progressed through this offseason of studying film, building his mental game, and being able to play more fast and free, his physical nature is one that you really like coming from a linebacker. I mean, that's all you want. A big, lengthy guy. He's long. He's able to, long arms, long legs. I mean, good blitzer. And so just playing more relaxed, I think, will benefit him a lot this year. And I'm looking forward to him. I can see where everyone wants that breakout season because he has the ability to. So
yeah, he kind of suffered from the expectations game, right? Like people expected so much that when they didn't get, I don't think he played as poorly as I think people think, but compared to the expectations, that's when it kind of, starts to sway a little bit. And to your point, like defensively too, like if you're thinking about yourself, because you just talked about keying off of the offense and what they're doing. But if you're thinking about your own stuff, then you're not thinking about the offense and picking up keys and that sort of thing. And that's the key to the whole, like, that's the key to defense, in my opinion. Like when I was playing well, it was like, I didn't even think about me. It was like all about what are they doing? What have they done? What have I seen them do in this situation? Down and distance, formation, personnel in the field and all that stuff. But if you're thinking about yourself, you're not thinking about any of that stuff. And that's when you play slow. And that's when you're not picking up on things, whereas another player might be playing a little bit faster because they know what they're doing all the time. So that's really good stuff. Yeah, I think we're all just kind of hoping to see a bounce back from Marist. And then I think we saw JD Bertrand come back as well a little bit because I know we had the wrist injury in 2021, which sounds terrible, trying to tackle people and you can't use your hand and that sort of thing. So that's going to be a big problem. Before I let you go here, you've been very generous with your time. I have a couple of questions. What is one game from your Notre Dame career that you feel like, I want that one back?
Ooh. Oklahoma State, the last game I played in college. I think that definitely has like sentimental value, but being up, I can't remember now, but being up a lot.
28-7.
Yeah. As your last game, obviously like my own last game, but just the season last game to win the Fiesta Bowl, a major bowl game win that Notre Dame wants. To fumble that hurt a lot, and didn't like how the defense played. And so that one I definitely wish that I could get back.
What's the worst you ever got chewed out in film?
Ooh. Okay, I think I can tell this story, but I'm not gonna do the film one. There's plenty of that too. But Coach Lee used to sit in the box. So Freeman was on the field guy, and Coach Lee was in the box, and we were playing. I think I don't even remember now. It was New Mexico State. I don't remember like the New Mexico.
I think it's New Mexico State. Yeah.
At home. They had a big run. We like shut them down pretty good, but then they had like a 60-yard big run.
Yes.
And it wasn't. I'm not gonna like say this to pat my own back. It wasn't my fault, but Coach Lee called down. Whenever Coach Lee calls down from the box, wasn't great. You know what I mean? Like, and like you hope he's not asking to talk to you. But sadly, he did want to talk to me, and he just wanted to vent, and wanted me to take the sideline by storm and tell you guys to tighten up. But he ranted on the phone for about like 3 real minutes. and he ended up like smashing the phone up in the box to where it didn't even work. Like the call dropped, and I thought he was going to think I hung up. So I got super nervous, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to think like I just didn't want to hear it. So I was like trying to make sure like I could get the phone back and like get him back on the line, and then ended up like he like just took the phone out of like the wall socket or something. But that was probably, yeah, that was definitely the most I got chewed out for sure.
That's wonderful. My worst one was in film. I got it was actually one of my touchdown in high school. I got chewed out for slowing down too soon. So that was great. I thought I was in for a good film session. It turned out to be a negative. One last one. The NFL draft is tomorrow. So Michael Mayer projected to go in the first round. How big of a problem is he for you as a linebacker?
He's the worst. I mean, he was still younger he's still young, but like, I mean, he was younger when I was there. I don't know if he's a freshman or sophomore at that point, but he was the guy, like, you know, if you're covering number 3 to the field and you look out, like you actually want it to be a receiver, not even Mayer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, which makes no sense usually. But it's the tight end and you got Mayer and you're like, damn. Because he has it's that stuff that like you don't even understand. Like, it's not, I don't know, he's not like the most freakish fast guy. He's not like an unbelievable, like I don't know what it is, but he has this knack in body awareness and to be able to create separation, and then he catches everything. But he's able to just separate you by using his body, leaning onto you, good route runner. And so he was a problem. So he's really good. You put a safety on him, but now you're freeing up another person, you know, as a wide receiver or something. So like, he's going to be awesome at the next level, and super excited to watch him. So
one thing I've noticed about him, he's very good at wrong footing defenders. And so he can get you kind of when you're in between, almost like he knows exactly when you are like in the middle of your pedal or something, and then he makes his break. He's very unorthodox that way, because most routes have almost like a cadence. You've probably picked this up as well. Like, the routes have a cadence a little bit, and so he just always is in the middle of your cadence, and it's kind of off. And the thing I tell people too is, like, tight ends, you could be faster than all of them. They're just so wide, you can't get around them. And I feel like Mayer is like the quintessential problem there. You just can't get around him. So even if you're covering him, you're on his back, you can't get around his shoulders, like, because he has such broad shoulders, you can't get to him. So that's interesting. And also your teammates Isaiah Foskey and Jarrett Patterson, Jason Adamalola. You've got a bunch of guys in the draft, so that's going to be pretty cool to see. I don't know, anyone you're rooting for in particular of the group that's coming out this year?
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I mean, all of them. I mean, that's the thing about Notre Dame, is like, all these guys are unbelievably good people, good leaders, good players. And so, you know, I don't know, like, the twins come to mind to me, like the Adamiola, you know, brothers. Like, they've made tremendous strides throughout their progression of Notre Dame, truly coming into themselves, maturing, starting to, like, they were the guys that leaders had to focus on when they got there, and then they ended up being the leaders themselves. And so, like, just to see that growth, like, is amazing. And so those guys going into this process, just want the best for those guys. And they're the life of any locker room. So they'll be enjoyed wherever they end up. But yeah, I guess the twins just come to mind.
Awesome. Well, look, you're already in the NFL, and we're going to be rooting for you. We're going to be following along on the Washington Commanders. Hope you make the team. You know, given your past, I'm going to place my bet on Drew White. So, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was a great conversation. You gave me a lot of your time. Go get to rehab. Go get to you know, all the stuff you got going on, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate you.
All right. Yep. Have a good one.